Shalom, I'm Rabbi Daniel Silverstein. I'm very happy to be sharing this Torah with Torat Chayim. Very proud to be a member of such a great group. And I want to talk about my Bar Mitzvah portion of Korach. And I want to ask the question, if God is one, and we pray every day that God will be one and God's name will be one, we believe in divine unity so strongly, we assert it in the Shema all the time, then why is such an important aspect of Judaism that we are a separate people and that we do things separately? We do eat this and we don't eat that, and we separate Shabbat from other days, and that within the Jewish people even we see, and it comes up in this week's reading in Korach, that the Levites are separated and the priests are separated. Why all the separation if the ultimate aim is unity? So I would like to start with an idea from the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, who really founded the school of Kabbalah that still dominates our understanding of it to this day in Sfat. And he brings a new idea into Kabbalah, which is Tzimtzum. Many of us have heard of already this idea of contraction, that before God could create the world, God had to contract God's self to make space for us, because without that, there would be no possibility of us existing as independent beings. We couldn't have a relationship with God because we would just be part of God. And so this is a model for all of our relationships, that we all need to do some ourselves to make space for others so there can be genuine relationship. Now, sounds easy, but actually we know from psychology, but also from our own experience, that that's a big challenge, that it's very tempting sometimes to either go to the extreme of suppressing or denying difference, of melding things together, or to go to the other extreme of so much separation that there can't be a healthy relationship. Again, this applies between individuals and in every other kind of relationship. And what we're ultimately aiming for is shlemut or shalom, which is not simple peace in the sense of everything being the same, but a shlemut in which every component part is recognized and celebrated for being unique, but is integrated healthily. Rav Kook writes about this very beautifully in his essay, Havdalah v'Hachlala, separation and integration. And he brings a beautiful passage from the Zohar there, which says, the Sitra Achra, the other side, really the kind of forces of evil in Kabbalah, begins with connection and ends with division. But the Sitra de Kedusha, the forces of goodness, begins with separation and ends with connection. So the order is very important in Kabbalah. We disconnect first, but in order to get to the connection. And we see this very keenly in this week's Parsha. Korach, the great rebel, says to Moses, everybody's holy. Why are you, Moses, separating yourself and Aaron, your brother, and the Kohanim, the priests, separate from the Levites and everyone else? The whole people are holy. And part of his complaint is, why didn't he get a better job? We know that. But he seems, if we take his words at face value, to have a fair point. Everybody got the Torah from God. Everybody had a face-to-face encounter with God according to the Torah itself. God, in the Torah itself, it says the whole people are holy. So Korach seems to have a point. And we find a very interesting passage in Rambam, Maimonides, in his legal code, Mishnah Torah, at the end of the laws of Shemitah v'Yovel, the sabbatical year and the Jubilee law. He says something amazing. He says, anyone, doesn't matter if they're a Levite or even if they're a Jew, anybody on earth who sets themselves aside and dedicates themselves to serving the divine, they are sanctified as the Holy of Holies, Kodesh Kodashim. God will be their portion and heritage forever. Will provide what is sufficient for them in this world, like he provides for the Kohanim and the Leviim, for the priests and Levites. So Rambam there is saying, in a way, maybe Korach is right. Anybody could achieve that high spiritual level of being completely devoted to God. But there's something very important in what Rambam said that actually I think is the whole point. And it's that setting aside. Rambam talks about removing from our neck the yoke of the cheshbonot, the calculations that people busy themselves with. He says it's not going to happen automatically in the day-to-day rat race. You're not going to achieve that level. But if you know how to set yourself aside, then you can. And this really actually is the point that Korach missed. Korach was trying to say, at least on the surface level, as a populist leader, everybody here is already holy. And Moses, and really God, was saying, Kedusha, sanctity, dedication, holiness, really requires special preparation and the intention and the fulfillment of that intention through preparatory activity that doesn't happen while you're busy with everything else. And Zohar actually in this week's portion talks about Shabbat in this context. It talks about how Shabbat is a shlemut, a completion that is necessary for the survival of the world. And that shlemut, again, it's not a shlemut of every day being the same. Imagine if every day was the same, right? If we didn't have Shabbat, life would just be a mundane race to do, to acquire, to build. But that's not the way we structure our week. Shabbat gives us purpose and meaning in our week, and it reminds us that there's more to life than just trying to do and build and acquire one more thing. So that shlemut we achieve through Shabbat integrates the rest of the week into it. Again, we wouldn't want to not have the 6 working days of the week also, right? We wouldn't want to have only Shabbat all the time. Then what would Shabbat be a completion of, right? It wouldn't be an integration of working towards a better world. So we really want the integration of all those parts into Shabbat. And this is also affecting how we see the future. Our sages teach us that the 70 souls of our people who went into Mitzrayim, into Egypt, reflect the 70 primal peoples of humanity. So we, the Jewish people, in a way, are a microcosm of the entire humanity. And they also teach us that when the Torah was given, it was given in those 70 primal languages of those 70 peoples. And not just given once, but actually given over and repeated, and then again engraved on huge rocks as the people went into the land. So the Torah was given in a way for everyone. But we're so used to thinking of it as being only for us. So the Me'or Einayim, the Chernobyl Rebbe, the student of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich, he explains it so beautifully. He explains that the Torah is scattered among the peoples, and that we've been exiled to find and raise up and clarify all the holy letters of the Torah. And you might think, if you hear that, that is still all about us, the Jewish people, doing all the work. After all, the Torah is ours. Actually, he says, how do we do this? He says we do this through our day-to-day regular dealings and business conversations with everybody around us. And through those regular interactions with all of the peoples of earth, we clarify those lost letters of the Torah and raise them up. And he says, if we would have a wholesome consciousness, then we would do that quickly, and we would speedily bring redemption to the world. Right? He says, unfortunately, we don't have that shlema, that consciousness of wholesomeness. Unfortunately, he says we're stuck in katnut, of narrow-mindedness, and unfortunately, that's why the exile is going on so long. So for both how we view time and how we view the future redemption, but also for how we view our day-to-day lives, I hope we can take the message from this week's Torah portion of really celebrating what is unique, celebrating every individual, of celebrating our unique gifts, and of knowing that they're part of a beautiful whole, and of working towards a world where everyone's uniqueness is really celebrated and integrated healthily. Shabbat Shalom.